Hello, and welcome to the BigTime Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches from around the nation that are making the big time where they are at. Before we get to the episode, we'd like to thank our sponsors that make this podcast possible. TeamBuildr is a strength and conditioning software that allows coaches to build training programs, create wellness questionnaires, access and track athlete data, and more. Athletes can log data using phones, tablets, or laptops and can watch exercise videos so they know exactly what to do. Coaches can use the tools within the platform to monitor athlete recovery and readiness. Be sure to sign up now with code BigTime and you will gain access to a 30-day free trial. This episode is also brought to you by Powerlift. Taking your athletic facility from concept to completion can be a challenge. It is Powerlift's goal to make the process as seamless as possible from start to finish. Their weight equipment is made from the toughest materials that can withstand excessive use from coaches and athletes for years to come. It's sought after for its unique design, customizable appearance, affordability, and superior warranty that training facilities deserve. Powerlift helps design weight rooms with the athlete in mind, and they pride themselves on their ability to outfit athletic facilities based on a team's unique goals. That's why high schools, universities, professional sports teams, and athletic performance facilities around the world have chosen Powerlift to help maximize their strength training goals. Call Powerlift today to be contacted with a rep in your area and give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see for yourself why our clients are Powerlift proud. Finally, this episode is also brought to you by Vitruve. Vitruve is a velocity-based training system designed for colleges and high schools around the world. It is accurate, reliable, and affordable. The software is quick and easy to set up and use with a whole room of athletes simultaneously. Coaches have chosen Vitruve because it simplifies VBT and allows them to seamlessly integrate it on a daily basis. Check out Vitruve now for your school's free demo unit. Now, let's get to this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the BigTime Strength Podcast. Today, I'm happy to have Trent Clausen on. He is a repeat offender of the BigTime Strength Podcast. He is a very, very intelligent dude that's helped me out so many times. One of the most organized guys that I know. And this year, had an opportunity to listen to him at the Iowa Strength Coaches Association. He delivered an awesome talk, and actually, that's what he's going to be talking about during this episode. So it's going to be kind of like that type of feel where like you're at a clinic, and he's going to be talking obviously to me, but then you as a listener. So sit tight and enjoy the show.
All right. Thank you, Preston. I appreciate having me on. I appreciate you bringing me on to talk about this topic, because it's something that has really rung true to me this season and this year, because I've had some changes in my professional career. But this presentation, the title is Developing a High School Strength and Conditioning Program to Serve All Athletic Teams. Like Preston said, my name is Trent Clausen. I'm the Director of Strength and Conditioning at Creighton Preparatory School in Omaha, Nebraska. So as we dive into this topic of developing a strength and conditioning program, I just want to let you guys know that a lot of the information I'm going to share with you is very unique to my situation. But I hope this uniqueness of my situation can help you shape or bring value to your situation. Some of you guys might be coming from high school, college, maybe even professional. So with those things, I hope that I can bring some value to that. Also, this presentation, I'm not going to cover a whole lot on programming or how I train my athletes in detail. I'm going to give you a little bit snippets, but I want this presentation to be more about the logistics and getting coaches on board to train with your program to better unify your program across the board for all sports. Here's a list of my mentors, just to give you guys kind of a heads up of who I've learned from, different facilities that I've worked at, Division I, high school, private sector, with those things and just those experiences, because they do help shape who I am, the coach I am today. So with that, all right. So right now, just asking kind of Preston, he's a live audience, but also you got listeners out there. Put yourself in a situation. Are you an activities director? Are you a head football coach, a head basketball coach, or are you just a strength and conditioning coordinator? Are you both combined? Are you at the high school setting, the college setting, professional setting, or at a large school or small school? Where do you see your program going in the future? Are you in a program right now where you're year 1 or year 5? Do you have your coaches on board? Do you have kids that are wanting to come train with you, or is it something where you're just getting the ball rolling? With those things, I hope that you can put yourself in that situation so that you can better take the information that I give you. So kind of just sit back for a few minutes, kind of play in your head where you currently are at, also where you'd like to take your program, What style of program are you in? What systems are you running currently with those things? Now, with that, I'm going to kind of share my story with where I am at today so you can better understand when I present on the facets of this topic so you can better correlate them with your program. So where do I fit in at Creighton Prep? I just finished up a 5-year career at Conestoga Public Schools. Class sizes of 70 students, anywhere between 50 and 70. I'm teaching classes during the day. I'm training athletes. I'm a head football coach. I'm also an assistant track coach. Fast forward, a few months, I get hired at Creighton Prep. I'm now overseeing a school of up to 1,000 students. 9th through 12th grade, variety of different sports, probably double the sports of what I was recently at. I'm not a head football coach anymore. I'm also not an assistant track coach. I'm the director of strength and conditioning there. I need to meet the needs of all the teams that we have. Some are currently training in the weight room, such as football, but they have a private sector coach coming in to coach them. Basketball, same situation, a separate private sector facility coming in to train them. Wrestling's training in season. Baseball's running a program that they've ran for many years. Swimming and diving's training in season. Our golf team hasn't stepped foot in the weight room. Our soccer team hasn't stepped foot in the weight room. They all have competed and won state championships. NFL players have come out of our high school. We've also had Major League Baseball players come out of the high school. I'm the newest coach in the facility. Like I said, it's my first year, and I need to get everybody on the same page and also be able to implement a program that I'm proud of that's going to drive our athletic and our academic things forward. It's an all-boys school, private, Jesuit high school, vastly different from where I came from. The current teacher, he was a big powerlifting coach. They have a huge tradition in powerlifting. Most of the weight room stuff that they're doing in class is going to be powerlifting based. That's not my philosophy, but it's something that I need to understand when I'm coming in the door. Here are our facilities. We have squat racks, half racks there, 17 of them with that. So kind of just seeing those pictures and hopefully Preston can share these slides with you so you're able to see the pictures of the Creighton Prep weight room here. All right, here are the situation and the tasks that I took out. Number one, I established a mission statement with all athletics across the strength and conditioning spectrum. I had to build relationships with all the sport coaches, the activities director, and also the athletic trainer. I ran a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the program and all the facility that I was able to utilize. I needed to build and foster a relationship with all athletes. I needed to develop a training schedule with them, develop a training programs and systems, and then I also had to implement that program and gather feedback. And last, which is probably the most important, I had to serve every day, every training session for all athletes. Mission statement. This is what I came up for my mission statement at Creighton Prep. And I would urge you to do this for yourself if you haven't already for your situation, your strength and conditioning. I'm going to develop the most explosive, resilient, detail-oriented, and physically prepared individuals and teams in the Midwest who strive through their faith and competitive excellence. Now, as you're compiling your mission statement, I think you need to look at some keywords or kind of see where you want to hang your hat on. So these were the things that I hung my hat on. I want to develop explosiveness. We're taking strength, we're taking power, we're adding them together. That's going to give us that explosiveness. We want to be resilient mentally, physically, spiritually in our situation. We need to be detail-oriented. We've all been in the weight room where an athlete asks you, how many reps do I have? We want to make sure that we kind of solidify that in the weight room so they understand what the sole purpose of each training session is, but also what kind of adaptation we're looking for with the training style that we're utilizing. We want to be physically prepared, not only for the state, but also in the Midwest. We're fortunate to go play other areas of the Midwest, so we need to be able to compete with those teams. And lastly, the two keywords in my mission statement would be faith and competitive excellence. Faith, I'm strong in my faith. Our students, we're striving to get them stronger in their faith. All of our teachers, like I said, we're a Jesuit-based school, so faith is a huge thing with us. I need to make sure that I compile that into the weight room along with the strength and conditioning stuff that we're doing. Competitive excellence, we need to be able to compete against each other at practice, in games, and also against every opponent that we face. And the last one would be excellence. We know that excellence is not attainable, but we're going to strive that for each and every day. Like I said, I would urge you to compile your own mission statement. Now, this is something that I'm definitely working on. I'm adjusting it. I'm working with other coaches so that I can fit the needs of each team with those things also. Step two, as I stepped in the door, I knew the head football coach, but that was the only coach that I had a relationship with. So before I even step foot in the weight room, I needed to meet with each of the coaches and see where they're at. Here's a list of questions that I asked in those meetings. And I'm going to go through those one by one. And I want you to kind of think of where you would evaluate yourself or maybe one of your teams that you train currently with each of these questions. So the first one, what is your program's philosophy? So Preston, would you be able to kind of talk about your program's philosophy, where you're at in the weight room?
Yeah, I feel like I can. Do you want me to do it right now?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. So our philosophy is we want to make sure that at the very pinnacle, the very top of everything that we do is we want to build toward lifetime wellness. So if it's anything that detracts from lifetime wellness, then it's something that we probably are going to cut. If it builds towards it, then that's kind of like our North Star, something that we use for that. Then out of that overflow of like lifetime wellness, we're going to start to look at the things that are actually going to get things done. And for us, program philosophy wise, we'll bring it back to the standards that we teach to. So commitment, which includes attitude, effort, and discipline. Then we talk about our performance, which is strength, speed, and power. So like our key performance indicators will all be centered around that. And then vision is our last standard. And within that, that is obviously setting goals, being able to check progress along the way. And then at the end, it's just kind of that evaluation or reflection. And those are going to be like the main things that we center a lot of our stuff around without even talking about the exercises.
Oh, awesome. That's very detailed. You put a lot of thought into that. So I appreciate that comment with those things. Number two that I asked was, what is your coaching philosophy or demeanor? I think we know the more programs that we work with, the more head coaches that we work with, we're not going to mesh with everybody perfectly, but I want to meet you where you're at. So if your philosophy of training your athletes in the practice, I want to make sure that I can match that in the weight room, because we all know that we're trying to meet the demands of the sport, but also that practice takes into that too. We can't just look at games. We need to look at practice, what the expectations of practice. Thus, now the demeanor, I have some head coaches that are big on being there on time, which that's a huge thing for me. But if it's not a big deal, or I know that they're going to go play some club basketball or whatnot, I may be missing some of those kids just to make sure I communicate that with the coach. Number three, what do you currently have established for a strength and conditioning program with your team? So I asked each coach that, just because I could talk to the different coaches and find out who's utilized weight room, who's not. But I wanted to hear it come out of their mouth of how they currently use their strength and conditioning program. Like I said earlier, each one was very vastly different with those things. Number four here, what changes with strength and conditioning do you feel would benefit your program? I think with any transition period, it's huge that you can maybe jump onto those weaknesses and hear it from the coaches where they feel like you need to tie up loose ends for their program. Number five here, what things in your existing strength and conditioning program are non-negotiables and must stay? We all work with those coaches. Maybe it's a certain exercise that they want to steer away from. Maybe it's a certain, like when I met with my basketball coach, he talked about the athletes don't like to feel sore. Okay, I understand that. Maybe this first go around this offseason in the summer, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative with volume so that we don't get as much soreness. But now when we're in the off season, I'm going to be a little bit more liberal with those things, because I have that established, that the relationship established with those students. Next one, is your team training over the summer months? I came in right before the summer, so I needed to know how I was going to have to serve their athletes in their program. Are they going to train in-house, or are they going to train on their own with those athletes? The next one, how do you foresee your program utilizing strength and conditioning during the fall, winter, spring months, etc.? Again, meeting the coach where they are at currently, kind of feeling them out. If they're not going to use the weight room at all, maybe I can encourage them to use it maybe once for 30 minutes. A cool thing is golf had never utilized the weight room. Another coach that I knew from down the road was able to talk to the golf coach and kind of talk me up. And I was able to get them in there one time a week for 30 minutes. Now they're training in season, which is really cool. It's a sport where, you can go out to the course every day, but they're understanding the priority of maintaining a personal, not only physical fitness, but also to be able to drive the ball further, play under fatigue, things like that. Next one, does your team train in season? If so, how frequently, and what methods and means have you used previously? So with that step, I want to make sure, especially with those in-season sports, you want to make sure that you're making them feel good about themselves, both physically, mentally, with those things. And then lastly, would be, how can I best serve your program? Again, Preston, would you be able to kind of detail of how you feel like you serve all of your athletes and your sports team's needs currently?
I feel like a lot of these questions that you're asking, I feel like I could do a better job. Like having these questions as a framework is something I'm going to go back and be able to talk with my coaches. Um, and then I believe that out of that conversation, we can land on the things that will best serve their programs. Yeah, this is great, man.
Awesome. Good to hear that. So that kind of leads me into the next one. This kind of took me into my SWOT analysis. So if you're not aware of a SWOT analysis, I think you just typed it in Google, SWOT. The S stands for strengths, the W stands for weaknesses, O for opportunities, and T for threats. This is something that I did initially right away when I came in, but it's something that I did at the end of the in season, also with our off season. Where can I better serve all my athletes and all my programs with that stuff? So this would be what I did with football. So strengths was the first one. They have established an off season and in season. I know that this sport trains in season. We come before school and train the kids, and they're in the off season. The program is based on development. I think that's something that every strength and conditioning coach wants to hear. We want to develop our kids from freshmen all the way to seniors. And football, I think, is a foundational sport where that has to happen because there's a difference between a freshman taking the field and a senior with their maturity level and things like that. Past training philosophy matches mine. Full disclosure, I played for the head football coach when I was in high school. He was a big reason why I came on board at Creighton Prep. So we already had that relationship. I think looking at maybe some other situations, probably the biggest roadblock from the strength and conditioning coach to the head coaches, you don't have that established relationship, or they feel like as a football coach, they might know better, which in terms, I think that's on the strength and conditioning coach to kind of educate them and help them out and understand that we're working together. Weaknesses would be the next thing that we went over. So specifically with my uniqueness and my situation, we were a young team. It's a rebuilding year. Creighton Prep is a school that makes the state playoffs each and every year. They have a bunch of state championships, like I said, NFL players. We only had a 7-week off season in the summer. We had a week 0 game, so I had to get those guys ready in 7 weeks, but also build a relationship with them. Logistics were not ideal, speed and agility and lifting. I was coming in, they already had their schedule decided. I just needed to make sure that I had things to do during that schedule, which wasn't a great thing, but I saw it as a weakness, but I could definitely benefit from that weakness with those. The numbers were going to be large. We're going to have 70 guys in the weight room at one time. I'm one strength coach. I'd have 2 to 3 football coaches. So being able to educate those coaches before we get in the weight room. Lack of player leaders. This is something that we really worked on in season, things like that. We were able to get some better leaders out for us. O for opportunities. The coach buy-in is there. The kids were excited about the change in addition to the staff. And they also understood that they needed to develop themselves. They're a great group of kids there. We continue. We were bringing in over 100 kids at a time in the offseason just for football alone this winter. So they definitely are a group of kids where there's huge opportunities for them. Threats. I think anytime a new coach comes in, especially strength and conditioning, we know that some people are going to base our stock on wins and losses. We knew that we were going to take our lumps in this season. I kind of just had to steer the ship in the weight room with those things. Some of the kids looked at my hire as kind of getting rid of a coach. Like I said, they had a huge tradition of powerlifting. They had a really good coach in that setting. When he decided to take off and I came in, some of the students questioned on what we were doing, which I challenged them to question me. I wanted to be able to come up with answers for them and kind of educate them along that. And then also the facility doesn't accommodate large numbers with those things. So Preston, is this something that you've ever done with your programs, like a SWOT analysis ever?
I stole this from Gage Rozier. Gage is big on SWOT analysis. So yes, I don't do it with every program like I should, though. This is like another thing that you've already brought to my attention. Like every year, I feel like this is something that I should be able to come back to.
And I think it's something that every coach, we all reflect on what we do. We all take that feedback. So I think it's something that we always do, but putting it down in writing, I think there's something to be said about that with those things. And like everyone, we need to reflect more with those things. So appreciate that answer. All right. The next thing was I need to build relationships with my players, with my coaches. So I needed to get myself into that program as soon as I could. So I saw an opportunity to be able to jump in head first. It was something that they already had established. They did an ACL screening on a Saturday morning. This would be something as a strength and conditioning coach where you might think it's a threat. You have an outside entity coming in to work with your athletes to do those things. But I thought it was a great opportunity to show that I am on board. I'm going to be a team player. I'm not going to go in and try to change things right away. And I'm going to kind of see what they have to offer, and then we're going to work off of those things. So that was a great experience for me. Next thing that we need to do is set a training schedule. So with our meeting that we had with the head coaches, I understood what they've done in the past and kind of what is a realistic next step for them. If they've never been in the weight room, maybe that realistic next step is, I'm going to give your kids a program. They can come in during open hours. Let's establish that relationship with that. And now with our training sizes, we bring them in one sport at a time. We don't train our kids all together with that, which is kind of unique to this situation. So I need to meet the coaches and sport programs where they were at. And the way that I saw it is, if they didn't kind of, come in the weight room right away, I'm going to plant a seed. I'm going to show other success that other programs were having along the way and kind of just watch it grow for the future. So the first summer, I trained football and I trained basketball. Those were the only two sports that I was able to train, which they already had that established. So one thing that I needed to do is I needed to show that we were getting results with them. Once I was able to show those results and show that I was going to build that relationship, I was a team player. I was then able to get in baseball in the weight room during the fall. Powerlifting was still training on with a separate coach. One of our brothers that works at the school does that, which he does an awesome job. Golf was in there, like I said, for 30 minutes once a week with those things. So as you can see with the schedule, we were able to get more teams in, not through hounding them and telling them that this is what they have to do, but building those relationships with the coaches, building those relationships with the athletes, showing them that this is a place for them to improve their performance. And then now we look at the winter schedule, and my afternoons, my mornings are just full with teams, which is awesome with that stuff. With our school being a preparatory school, we do not offer a whole lot of strength and conditioning classes during the school day. So we have to do a lot of before and after school things with that. So the next step would be develop a training program to meet the needs of the students. So here's some things that I think every coach needs if you're a first year coach coming in, these are some questions that you need to ask yourself. So what is currently being implemented? What are they currently doing in the weight room, and how can you build off those things? Number two, what are going to be your program principles? So we heard Preston talk about his principles earlier. He has those solidified. I think that's another step to your mission statement with those things. And then also, what adaptation are you setting out for? Each team that we train, different adaptations are going to benefit them more, meeting the needs of the sport with those things. So here is a great analogy of a system that Joey G of FAU presented last year at a conference that I was at. It was just a great way to understand that we can't be married to certain exercises, certain styles, okay? So the analogy is talking about a ship on water. So kind of just visualize with me on this, okay? The adaptation or the stimulus that you're training for is the destination that you're trying to reach on your ship, okay? The volume that you train at keeps the ship afloat. That has to be worked with it. The intensity is going to steer the ship, excuse me. Okay. So adaptation is the destination. Volume is what's going to keep the boat afloat. The intensity steers the ship. Okay. The exercise of the vessel. So as we understand, the destination is the adaptation. So we can choose exercises that will get us to that adaptation. There's many exercises that can get us to that. Okay. The intensity that you work at, the percentage that you're working at, maybe it's the speed of the movement, maybe it's the time under tension, things like that. It's going to steer that ship, and it's going to get you, are you going to take a long way to get to that destination? Are you going to get there fast? Or are you going to get there safely, efficiently? And then also that of the volume, okay? That kind of leads me into my next slide, which is inch wide, mile deep. So as you think about what your exercises, I think of that I utilize a lot of Olympic lifts. I use a lot of the powerlifting lifts, and I also utilize a lot of sport-specific lifts. I would call them, they have a high transferability with those things. So we need to make sure that we meet the sport demands. We can call this dynamic correspondence or transferability, which would be, are the exercises that you're currently doing in the weight room improving them athletically, both in performance, but also injury prevention? Also, I think another question you have to ask yourself is, what is each team willing to dedicate for training time? I think that kind of leads you in the direction that you're going to utilize in the weight room. If it's just once a week, you know that you're going to have to get the meat and potato stuff done. You're not going to be able to get too fancy in the weight room. You just got to get them stronger. Okay. Then we can look at the other things once we get our athletes strong. What is each team's goal for how strength and conditioning can impact the program? So if they're willing to train in season, off season, I think that's going to change on how kind of the system you utilize with each team. How will the training fit into the skill development sessions? I think a huge one would be baseball and basketball. We know that they're going to get their skill development, and that's just nothing that you're going to fight. So can your training fit those things to allow them to still get those developmental sessions, but also get the best out of the training? Also, the last one would be, what can your facility and equipment logistics handle? I would love to have jammer arms on my racks, but I don't. So I need to find different ways to utilize power. So we're going to use landmine variations of that. That would be one example with those things. So ideal situation, I think, if you're able to talk your coaches into this, and this might be a big step for some coaches, it might be a small step for some, would be 3 times per week in the off season, both movement, speed, and agility work, plyometric work, and also weight room time. And then asking for 2 times per week in season. Now, I didn't put a time on this. Some teams can commit 30 minutes. Some teams can commit an hour with those things, but meeting the needs of those programs. The program makeup is going to adjust based on all variabilities, based on time that you're able to spend in the weight room, number of days that you're able to spend in the weight room, things of that matter. These are 2 great books that I took some really good solid things away from. The first one being The System, Soviet Periodization Adapted for the American Strength Coach. One of the great quotes in it is, you have to get strong before you can get exotic. I think this stands true. And if you have short time in the weight room, figure out what's going to meet the needs of your athletes and what's going to be you're going to be able to get done in a quick time period. That kind of comes down to your principles and your philosophy. Second book, the Little Black Book of Training Wisdom. The quote from that is, don't do things that might negatively affect your consistency. When I heard the basketball coach tell me that his athletes did not like to be sore, I knew that that was going to change up the consistency that they want to come in and train if I made them sore. So I was a little bit more creative on how we develop that strength, how we develop that power, how we develop hypertrophy with those students. So being able to meet their needs, but also do it within the with those things of them being able to handle it maturity wise, and also more physically and emotionally. Again, we're still developing that training program, that system. Okay. So I think one thing is understand some coaches are going to hand the keys over to you and just say, do whatever you want to do. And others are going to ask you to see the program every time. I think ultimately you're a piece of the coach's and athlete's sport program. So you're meeting the needs of their sport program. They're not meeting the needs of your strength conditioning program. That's a fine line to walk. I understand that you have to kind of find out what works best for your situation. And the second thing here is over-deliver the program transparency with coaches. Every single new phase that I have, I print off the phase, sets, reps, intensities, training adaptation that we're looking out for, and I'm going to give it to the head coach, and I'm going to say, would you like to set up a meeting to talk this through? My baseball coach, just kind of to be more customizable with this stuff, my baseball coach sat down with me the first time, and I had to sell him that program, which it's his baseball program. They've won the most state championships of any teams in the state of Nebraska. I understand where he is coming from. I didn't take it as a threat. I didn't take it as he was attacking me. We just need to sit down and I need to explain to him what I'm looking for out of his team and how I'm going to help his team. On the other end of it, like I said, I had an established relationship with the head football coach, sit down, explain to him what I wanted to do. He said, that's great. Just keep me kind of up to date with what we're doing so that I can help you better facilitate your weight room time with those things. So I think in your situation, each of the listeners is to kind of look at where you are at, what kind of relationship you have with that head coach, because we know that students are going to see those relationships. They can read those things. So if you're always kind of at each other, there's animosity between the two. I think, just finding a way to meet each other where you need and be able to serve that program. Some are going to want it. Some, they might just want to see that sheet and move on with those things. Again, now we're going to implement that program. We have our systems in place. At least we have an idea of what our systems are going to be in place. One thing that we're able to do, we use TeamBuildr. So not only can the students input their data, but I can pull it off of what they're doing. So I can run reports. Is it perfect? No, but I don't think any training program is ever perfect, but it fits the needs of that, and I can gather feedback on those things. Here's some other ideas. With the data that I take, I'm going to show any improvements that we were able to take in each training phase, and I'm going to promote it. I'm going to show kids that are getting stronger in season, especially if a program is saying, hey, we can't get stronger in season because we're going to diminish our returns on the field. I'm going to show them, no, we're getting stronger. We're just being a little bit creative on how we're getting stronger so that you can still perform at a high level. And I think I hang these up throughout the school. I'm going to post them out on social media. And like you can see on the slides, it's all about plus 37 pounds on the front squat. That's the average team improvement. Do we think that weight on the bar is the most important thing? No, but that's one thing that we can measure and we can show. That's going to hit hard with the kids. It's going to hit hard with the coaches. They're going to see numbers on the bar with those things. We know there's all consistency with range of motion, speeds, things like that. But just as a good coach, you understand those things. So promoting the things that are positive for your program. Also, we look at movement, speeds, whether it be a top time for a 5-yard to a 10-yard acceleration fly. recording those things, giving yourself a top 10 and posting that throughout the school, posting it on social media. This is huge for your kids. This is going to build that buy-in with the kids. They're going to see that they're improving. They're also going to compete more with those things as they know that they're going to be stacked up against their peers with those. And lastly, kind of showing that success, naming maybe a student of the week. These were our football players right here that were lifters of the year. They had never done it before. We picked a freshman, we picked a sophomore, we picked a junior and a senior to give out lifter of the year for football. And most recently, NSCA All-American stuff, NHSSCA All-American things. I think those are huge to promote your program and show your kids, your younger kids, you see that success on the field, but this is how they got it. They did it in the weight room. They're doing it on the practice field, things like that. So just showing that character development, but also that physical development with those things. Lastly, and I think this one is huge, is you are there to serve your athletes. You are there to serve your coaches. This is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. We all have different strengths. Utilize your strengths to serve your athletes with those things. Like I said, this has been a journey for me. This is something that I probably did not do the first time when I took over at my last high school. I didn't meet the needs, and there were some growing pains with those things. But I understand my gift, my strengths, but I also need to understand the coaches around me. What are their gifts? What are their strengths? How can I utilize them more fully to serve their program? I think you have to have that service mindset or that servanthood mindset every day, every training session. There were mornings that I'd be on the road at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I had to consistently fill my mindset with things that were positive to get myself in the right mindset to serve my athletes when I got there. Constant communication with the sport coaches, your athletic trainer, your activities director. I think this is huge across all coaching. Is just you have to communicate with everybody. You got to communicate with your athletes. You got to explain why you're doing certain things. Is going to help you with serving them also. But also that training environment and the mindset, like I hit on earlier, that's huge. Making an abiding training environment, having a mindset to helping your students, helping your athletes, helping your coaches with those things. To continue on with serve, be active at practice and games. I made sure that I show up to at least one game for every sport. I make sure that I talk to the students in the hallways about, what are the good things going on in the season? How can I help them better with this? And it's just a constant thing. You have to continue to be active at those things. Take an interest in all their sport programs. I never swam on a swim team, but I'm going to consistently ask them about their times, have they made state cuts, things like that, just so that they understand that I'm not doing it just to put on a show. I'm doing it because I have I'm being genuine with them, so therefore that they can understand that I'm there for them. Student athletes are going to coach, and coaches are going to spread the word. I think if you're doing great things in the weight room, they're going to continue spreading that word and all those positives coming out. And lastly, results are going to speak for themselves. If you can show that they can benefit their not only athletically, but also physically in the weight room, they're definitely going to want to come in the weight room and utilize what you have to do. So lastly, I think this is a big thing with this presentation is here's your call to action. We talked about what situation are you currently in? How can you better serve or better prepare your athletes, not only in the weight room, but being able to do it across all sports. Some of us want to have that program that we serve all athletic teams. Some of us, we only have certain sports that we're serving. So finding a way to meet the needs, but also to continuously evaluate where you're at and how you can benefit your athletes better and better each and every season on those things. So that would be a great call to action for all the listeners is kind of where you're currently at, where would you like to go, and how are you going to get there? I'd like to, before we take questions, I'd like to thank the ISCA, the Iowa Strength Coaches Association, for allowing me to put that presentation on at their awesome state clinic that they had, but also Preston bring me on to give it again. Also, the Nebraska Strength Coaches Organization, great organization there. If you're from the state of Nebraska, definitely reach out to Nebraska Strength Coaches Organization to get involved. Here's my contact information. My email is tclausen, TCLAUSEN, at CreightonPrep.org. And then my social media handle is at Coach_Clausen on both Instagram and Twitter. So Preston, as being the live audience, do you have any questions or anything to comment on this?
Two comments. We will try to get slides and contact info in the show notes for you. Okay, so that's my two comments there. And then questions. When you are going through and getting started with all these coaches, right? You over the course of your first year, you did that. Will you continue on getting feedback, sitting down with these coaches, having meetings? What does this look like, like from year 1 to year 5? Will any of this change like as you go through it?
Oh, 100%. This is something that I'm doing even before the summer is I'm reaching out to coaches, seeing if they'd like to sit down and talk. I'm always asking, what do you think of the program? Are you seeing at the end of the season, I'll ask them, were your athletes prepared for the season? Number one. And also, did they continue to stay prepared until the end of the season?
Yeah.
So that I can kind of fine tune those things. With those, also with summer, I thought I would probably have a little bit more interest in coming in and training in-house. So continually to probably repeat a lot of these steps with some of those coaches that I haven't really met, their needs of them seeing the benefit of the weight room with those things. Does that answer your question
No,
well
that was
enough?
perfect. Yeah. And
Okay.
then when you are in these meetings, how are you structuring this? Is it just a conversation or are you using like a document, very similar to that slide that you showed, and you're just going step by step through that?
Yeah, I'm a big pen and paper guy in meetings. So I will have kind of my talking points that I want, and I'm just taking notes. And I think everything that I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, but I'm also going to put it through a filter. We know some head coaches are going to ask for things that maybe you don't see as important as they do, but putting it through a filter so that I can at least hear them out, and because they might be looking at it from a totally different lens, to take those notes from that meeting and to look at it. Maybe it's a meeting where I have to go clear my head and kind of evaluate with those things. But I would say there's that running document, but it's pretty free flowing. There's nothing, there's nothing in ink. It's all in pencil if you want to look at it that way with those things.
Yeah. I just think about like when I first got to Mount Vernon, I had all these sit down meetings. They were so fruitful and so good. And I need to do it again. But I need to make it a regular deal. And it's just taking the time to do it, right? Like, so yeah, the call to action, I was like, oh man, that's me.
And I think part of it is too, you're not only working with your schedule, you're working with your sport, your coach's schedule, with that. So it's tough. It's definitely tough, but we all got into coaching because we want to do it for the kids. So understanding that you're doing it for the kids, so making that time for those things.
Totally. One of the things that we do on all the shows, even if this is a presentation style, is we ask coaches how they're making the big time where they're at. I think you nailed that with the last couple slides with what it looked like with that servant type of heart. But do you have any final words that you want to talk about when you're talking about making the big time?
No, I think with me, and I grew up in a public school. I taught at a public school. Being in that private school aspect, I think my faith is very strong, and it gets stronger and stronger each and every day. So I think bringing all these students closer to Jesus Christ being their Savior is a huge thing for me. But utilizing within sport, and also within the weight room and also within the classroom with those things. But just understanding that I'm serving them. Someday my kids might come to this school if they're lucky enough to come there. So just understanding that I'm setting the foundation, not for this year, not for next year, but this is a tradition that's carried on. It's going to continue to carry on. So me being kind of part of that tradition for the future.
I love it. That's awesome, Coach. I really appreciate you taking the time. This was super relevant, very eye-opening for me. I got to go back and look at my Iowa Strength Coaches Association clinic notes, and then just the notes that I've got from today, and just I don't know, just figure out how I'm going to get all these meetings on the calendar, but make sure that I'm prioritizing like how can this be fruitful? How can we come away from each one of these meetings and benefit our kids? So I love it. Thank you. Very stimulating, and I appreciate yeah, just the information and the time, man.
Yes, thank you very much.